Hi everyone, this is Jed Schlackman. In this video I'll be speaking about endogenous and exogenous microbes and some of the misunderstandings of what people refer to as infectious illness. We've lived most of our lives being exposed to all kinds of microorganisms, and pretty much everyone has experienced some type of illness or disease state that's been attributed to organisms or pathogens, you could say, that are believed to be infectious. So you might have had colds or flus, you might have chickenpox or measles, you might have mono, you might have something like HIV. So many different types of illnesses are ones that people correlate or attribute to exposure to some type of microorganism that is understood to be infectious or transmissible. That is, that microbe can be expelled from one person and received or absorbed by another person, and in this theory that's fostering a disease process from one person to the other person. So that's a rather simplistic and one-dimensional understanding that doesn't actually correspond well with all the science that we actually have looking at these phenomena. In reality, things are much more multifaceted, multi-layered, multi-dimensional, and if we look at the idea of causality scientifically, we come to recognize that these organisms, in a sense, are not the actual cause per se of the illnesses that people correlate them with. They are at best just one factor, one component of a disease process or a set of symptoms that appear. And in a way, those symptoms can be looked at as a self-healing process or a biological balancing mechanism that's unfolding. And if we just point to the microbe and blame the microbe for this whole disease process, we're missing the true causes, the other layers of causality that are present, which leads us away from an understanding that would help us better treat, better restore balance to the system, and thereby restore our health. This is, in a sense, why medicine or mainstream medicine has not really made much progress in fostering health. Even with infectious illnesses, if we look over the last several decades, there really hasn't been significant progress in mainstream medicine in helping people recover from acute infectious illnesses. And the story with things that are chronic, with autoimmune types of illnesses, with cancers and some other conditions, we see the same challenge, that there's an effort to look at the disease as some type of enemy caused by some type of outside agent attacking us, and the medical approach is to find some type of chemical to try to fight back against some external agent or organism that we believe is attacking us. And while there may be some short-term results or benefits that come with doing that, for the long term there tend to be more detriments, more damage or impairment to our body's systems, so that we become more vulnerable to additional illnesses, to even more severe or chronic types of illnesses. So if we want to really foster healing and health, we have to look at what's been thrown out of balance, what stresses are present, so that we can address those to effectively restore our health and balance. if we take a typical acute so-called infectious type illness, we can see that a lot of people may be exposed to an organism, a microbe, that's generally understood to be the cause of that illness. Yeah, let's say out of a population of people that are found to be exposed to a cold virus or an influenza virus, actually only a very small percentage of those people will actually appear at some point to show symptoms of illness. So the people that are shown to be exposed to something, at least there's an antibody test or something of that nature that gives some type of a sign that indicates to the researchers that exposure had previously occurred. We have most of those people never actually becoming ill. So they're called asymptomatic, meaning there's no symptoms present. But of course, if there's no symptoms present, there's no actual illness. So the fact that someone was exposed to some type of microbe doesn't mean they're going to get an illness. There would have to be other variables, other factors present that are significant and important in determining whether a person actually exhibits or demonstrates some type of illness. So from that perspective, you can't really say scientifically that that microbe is the cause of the illness. It might be something that appears as part of a process that occurs when the person is ill, but the reality is that most people exposed to that microbe won't have those symptoms that are defined as the illness. And you will also find many people who exhibit particular symptoms, signs associated with an illness, who will not show that they've been exposed to that particular microbe. So that so-called pathogen or infectious organism is not present in that person, yet they're showing those disease symptoms. So there could be other factors present that are creating those symptoms or illnesses, which we need to understand if we want to be successful in helping people restore their health. With this understanding, let's look at what we do know are factors that contribute to people exhibiting symptoms of illness or disease. We know that psychological stress is very highly associated with all kinds of illnesses. So if you have some type of emotional trauma, some type of conflict going on in your family, in your work environment, all these kinds of things are very well known to have an impact on the body that leads toward a variety of illnesses. The type of illness that appears would tend to correlate with the type of stress, with the particular psychological or emotional issue that's involved. So different people will develop different illnesses depending on the type of psychological stress that they've been under. For some people it might be something that's related more to the heart, for others more to the lungs, for others more to the pancreas, to the liver, to the kidneys, to the bladder, to the skin. So we have all these different parts and organs in our body and different tissues that symbolically or metaphorically correspond with different psychological issues and patterns. You could say this is an archetypal system of these issues being reflected in our physical body. We can also understand that when we have a physical injury, then our physical body is compromised and the balance is thrown off in a way that makes us more vulnerable to some type of infection occurring where the injury has occurred. Since we understand that there's this state of much greater or heightened vulnerability will tend to use some type of antiseptic agent, something to promote disinfection on that part of our body that's been left vulnerable. So if you have a cut or wound, you could put something on there, some type of element that's effective at stopping the activity of microbes. So that keeps the microbes from starting to spread or proliferate there, giving your body the time to recover, to repair that tissue, and restore the normal protective barrier that is present. Once the body has done that, once the skin or protective barrier is restored, you don't have to continue putting antimicrobial elements or compounds there. The body is back to its own natural balance and homeostasis, and you're not going to have an infection there because the body is in that healthy state. So we can apply that understanding to every other aspect of our physical body and to the process of infection. When our body is in balance and harmony, when our energy level is normal, when we have adequate nourishment to our cells, then the integrity of our body and our cells and organs is solid, and we're not going to get an infection no matter what we might be exposed to from our environment. It's also helpful to understand that microbes play a role in biology of helping break down and make way for the replacement of damaged cells or toxin compromised tissues. So if you've been exposed to major toxins in your environment, things like heavy metals or endocrine disrupting chemicals or neurotoxins, all these different things that can impair your body, that can damage the cells and inhibit their ability to function, well, your body needs to remove and replace those damaged cells and tissues, and it could actually work synergistically, or you could say symbiotically, with different types of microbes to allow those microbes to start to become active in those cells or tissues to break down the toxins, to help take apart and remove those cells that are no longer functional. And this can be a process that can be interfered with or disrupted in a way where the activity of those microbes starts to appear out of control. And in that case, you might need to do something to slow down or inhibit the activity of the microbes until you can use other methods to reduce those damaged tissues or cells and remove the toxins that might have impacted your body. So this can be a little bit complex or tricky to navigate and address, and physicians who work in the field of holistic medicine and functional medicine tend to have a lot more insight into these processes than mainstream medicine physicians, since they're looking more systemically and holistically at all these different variables that are involved. So we can take a look at something like cancer, and in a cancer disease process, a person might have some major psychological or emotional trauma that creates an interference pattern in their energy flow and the subtle life force energy that's going to their cells, which affects the electromagnetic current and potential. And as a result of that, the cells start to have problems with removing toxins and absorbing and receiving nutrients. So the cells start to become damaged. Those cells are not functioning to sustain the person's health anymore. And as part of a biological mechanism to attempt to address that cellular stress, the body may allow different types of microbes to start to come in and break down those cells. And in that case, if you were a researcher looking at cancer, you would find a correlation between cancer and those types of microorganisms that happen to be present at that stage of the cancer process. And you might look at that and come to the linear conclusion or correlation that those particular microbes, whether they're viruses or bacteria or fungus or mold, that those are what are the so-called cause of the cancer. But that's really a misinterpretation. They are, in a sense, a cause of certain symptoms that might appear in this process that's occurring in that particular stage. But you're really just taking kind of a freeze frame or snapshot out of a whole movie, out of a whole lengthy process, and you're trying to create a narrative or story to explain that whole process based just upon that one snapshot or freeze frame that you've taken. You're not actually seeing the whole story as it unfolds, and you're really not understanding it. And this is the case with most disease processes and illnesses overall. Mainstream medicine is trying to capture snapshots, and then it creates a convenient story about it, which leads them to think that there's some external foreign organism or agent that's attacking the person, and that we need to find a way to attack that particular organism or that particular thing that appears to be causing the illness. When you do that, you often do put the whole process on hold. You may stop the symptoms, at least for a while, but all the underlying causal factors will often remain since your treatment hasn't addressed those. So once you've made this attempt to stop the illness through stopping whatever appears to be causing the symptoms, you may actually be driving the underlying stress factors even deeper into the person's system, where they'll reappear later with even more aggressive disease symptoms. And at that point, it'll perhaps be even more challenging to try to help that person recover. So the holistic understanding of health and illness is one that looks to perceive things more deeply and more completely, so that we don't just look at the snapshot or freeze frame. We don't form an inaccurate or faulty interpretation based upon that. And we find ways to address all the different stresses that are contributing to the state that's creating the illness, that's leading microbes to become highly active or overactive. And we don't put all the blame for illness on a foreign organism. We see the whole system and all the factors that are co-creating this state of illness, and we're more wisely and judiciously taking steps to shift that state to help the person recover their energy and their nutrition, to help remove any toxins, to help people get away from any environments, whether it's psychological or biological, that are putting stress on their body. This is the way we can really help people recover their health. So if we look at things that are occurring, particularly in news stories about infectious illnesses, we'll often see that people are having their condition deteriorate. People are ending up dying, not because that they were exposed to a particular microbe, but because the conditions that made them ill and vulnerable to the activity of that microbe haven't been addressed, and in fact the treatments given to them are in a sense aggravating the situation, exposing them to more toxins, suppressing aspects of their immune system response, so allowing the state of distress to continue or go even deeper, which is the actual reason why the progression of illness ends in death rather than in recovery. So my approach as a holistic healer is to try to understand the multiple layers of reasons why people are manifesting a particular set of symptoms, a particular illness, and the name and diagnosis of that illness are really not synonymous with just a particular microbe, with a particular organism that might appear to be present at that time. It's also important to understand that there are both endogenous and exogenous microbes. So we might be exposed to microbes from our environment, from other people around us who are expelling them in some way, but we also generate them from within ourselves. Our body actually has more microbes in it than cells with our own genetic material. So we have all these bacteria and viruses and funguses in our body that normally are in a certain balance and are being used to help our body maintain itself. So they're serving a symbiotic purpose. They're not actually harming us. It's only when conditions change, when certain stresses, extreme imbalances arise, that the activity of those microbes changes, and the actual shape or form or function of different microbes can change in response to the environment. So they can be kind of like shapeshifters in a way, where they transform in order to help meet or address the needs of the body. This has been referred to as pleomorphism. So the actual structure or shape of microbes changes. They can change their form and function and do different things depending on what the body needs them to do. So we can generate a so-called pathogen within our own body. It doesn't have to come from outside of ourselves. Our body might have a need to create these particular materials for some purpose. There's something that's been labeled an exosome, which scientists have been researching, which is something that looks pretty much identical to a virus, but it's actually created from within the cells of our body, and it's used for different maintenance processes within our body. We're generating that from within ourselves. So even if a person was completely isolated, if they were not exposed to any other human beings or even any other animals or mammals, they could develop some type of a microbe that could appear in combination with a state of illness. You can't completely escape from microbes and from the potential for developing these illness processes, since the illness is likely to be an effort by your biological system to clear out some type of buildup of toxin or some stress to help restore balance. So it's a necessary process, and it could actually help you. It can support your health if you know how to support that process. If you don't understand what's going on and you do some things to try to interfere with that process, to try to suppress the symptoms, you may end up causing that process to become even more distressing or more challenging, to create even more risk or hazard to your well-being. But it's not really the fault of the original purpose of that process. You can't just blame that on those microbes. You have to understand how you're responding to the state of distress, whether you're helping nourish your well-being or you're doing something that doesn't really help nourish your well-being. I know that these are kind of complex issues for most people to understand, but if you're dealing with any kind of health challenge, it's very important to be able to look at things from this more holistic and multidimensional perspective. Otherwise, you may intervene in ways that don't help you, that actually aggravate your condition. You might do something that temporarily relieves or halts symptoms, but the long-term effect of that might actually be to degrade your body, to cause more damage or more imbalance, and to lead to even more severe types of symptoms or illnesses that will arise at a later point. So my desire is to support you in your healing process, to help you recover greater health and well-being. And this is the reason I'm sharing this particular video, and why I share many other resources about holistic health on my website. My website is phinsights.com. That's phinsights.com. So for now, I'd like to thank each of you for taking your time to explore this subject, seeking to expand your understanding. I wish everyone a wonderful day. Namaste.